Moving on from the semicolon, it's always the most crucial point, because you are still in that gray space where you have given up on lost, but then you now are in that position where you are about to enter something new, which is the found space. And it is this very place where you think and you question yourself if you should or you shouldn't. So there are a lot of variables which might tell you that you shouldn't, but then there are endless variables that tell you that you should. And I am glad that I was able to look at the shoulds and not at the shouldn'ts. So doing that, it brings you into this whole another world, which is full of hope, which is bright, which is all light. And the first song in the found space happens to be Kashmir. The sound of Kashmir is very hopeful in itself. So this is how I look at Kashmir. I have always looked at Kashmir as something which has always kept me grounded, which has always made me feel like myself, which has given me endless peace. You know, I could be anywhere in the world, but in order to meet myself again, I have to be in Kashmir again. So this song sounded like that. It was a long time ago. I was on the Bund, Jehlam Bund, with my friends, and they said, why don't you make something which is of this sort? And I remember it took me a day or so to figure out that this could be a song. And then we immediately knew that Noor Muhammad Saab was supposed to be a part of it. The warmth in his tone and how people loved him, and they would want to listen to something new coming from his side, because he mostly sings what he has already memorized since his childhood. So this was something new that he tried with us. We recorded this at Miraki studio, and sama kuch aur tha us moment pe, because we were talking about Kashmir, and it says in Kashmiri, it says, Chanan chanaran tal shehjar chiyes laban, ke tumhare chanaron ke niche, under the Kashmiri maple trees, we find shade. ये केम सुकून सैतन आबशार ते व्यथ छे पकान. ये कितने सुकून और ठहराव के साथ ये जो वाटरफॉल्स हैं और जो ये नदियाँ हैं कैसे बह रही हैं. It says, बागन फुलाई द्रामत्स बंबर छी गथ चकरान. The gardens are laden with flowers, and the flowers have bloomed. और जो भंवरे हैं, they're fluttering around. बागन फुलाई द्रामुत्स बंबर छी गथ चकरान. सोंतुक वक्त वतित आस्तानन तहर इस कड़ान. So when the spring comes, what we do as Kashmiri people is that we take out the feast of Tahar, which I heard you mention earlier. We take that feast and we go to the shrines to feed the poor, to feed the believers. So this definition of Kashmir, or this picture of Kashmir, comes from a very spring kind of feel, and Noor Muhammad Saab's warm tone really did justice to it. The last moment, we made a decision, and we decided to bring Zartasha on the track. She flew in, she recorded, she flew out, all within 24 hours. It was very rigorous, but what a wonderful job she did. And I remember how the song went from one producer to another, and we were not able to crack the sound for it. And luckily, at the end, we met Anindo Bhai. So Dada actually cracked the sound for this song, and he happens to be a member of this very celebrated band called Advaita. So talking to him about the song, gave him a couple of references about how it is supposed to sound, and I just told him that this should encapsulate Kashmir, and then not to forget the rabab player for the song and the sarod player for the song. Ayanjo was the rabab player, and Rauhan Prasanna was the sarod player, and both of them did their own sessions at their own places. But then when we put it all together, it sounded like these two guys are in the same room and they're looking at each other and they're complimenting each other so good, and they're in sync. Like the sarod is asking a question and the rabab is answering it. The rabab is asking a question and the sarod is answering it. Such was the beauty. Everything was in flux, and that's when I knew that this is the found song. This is actually the song which is supposed to be the first one in found. And I found myself, while listening to Kashmir, the last draft that I received, I found myself in Kashmir under a tree, resting peacefully in shade. The ideal idea of Kashmir that I have. So it was very whimsical and very, it boosted that imagination of mine about hometown. So the outro of this particular song, it happens to be in Kashmiri again, and through that, the whole idea of putting that outro in Kashmiri was that we wanted to pay tribute to this Kashmiri poetess who is very celebrated there, Haba Khatun. She happened to be the wife of the king of Kashmir, Yusuf Shah Chak, before he was taken away by a tyrant king, and then he was not sent back to Kashmir. So the woman went rogue and she just went on and walked in the mountains. She was basically from Pampore. Pampore happens to be the saffron heart of Kashmir. Saffron fields are found in Pampore. So she was from there, and from there she migrated to some whole another place. She was wandering in Harmukh mountain range, and while doing all of this, she wrote these poems in memory of her lost husband. So in order to pay that tribute to her from the whole of the musician community, the outro went like that. From this feeling of being in Kashmir, we wanted more, and in order to keep it very fresh and soft and sober, we did this song called Parwan. Parwan is a song which talks about a moth. Parwan means a moth. So what a moth does, moth जो होता है, परवाना जो होता है, उसकी खसलत ये होती है कि जहाँ कहीं वो रोशनी को देखता है, वो उस रोशनी की तरफ वो रागिब हो जाता है. He starts getting attracted towards that light and he whirls around that light. Same is the case in this song. This moth is whirling around a candle. This fellow doesn't know that the candle would burn him. He doesn't care about the fact that the candle would burn him, and he's still whirling around it. So the song says, Tat Shamhas Pat Parvan Kaitya. उस शम्मे के गिर्द कितने परवाने झूम रहे हैं, तस म्योन का परवाह नवेसिए, और उस शम्मे को मेरी कोई फिक्र ही नहीं. So I wrote the Urdu part of it. It was quite a little translation of what Rasul Mir has written. Rasul Mir, the guy I relate with the most, he's the first Kashmiri poet of his era to be so fearless and started writing romantic poetry when everybody else, his contemporaries, were trying to write about some other topics, other themes. So he fearlessly wrote romantic poetry, and he says, all of what he said, I tried to translate it to make the Urdu part of the song, which is the intro. It says, Us shamme se parwane jale, us shamme ko meri fikr kyun rahe. And then the song goes into this line, Mutgom yar farzan vesiye, Kudgom kar buzan vesiye, my wise beloved has gone crazy. खुद गुम कर बजान वैसियो वो कहाँ गया और मैं कब जानूंगा कि वो कहाँ चला गया. Then comes in this line, Tatsham haspat parvan kaitya, tasmyon ka parvan vesiye, again. And then there is a mention of Yusuf and Zulaikha. So just like we have Laila and Majnu, we have Heer and Ranjha. So there was this prophet. His name was Yusuf alayhi salam. And there was this woman, her name was Zulaikha, in the kingdom of Egypt. So when they happened to meet, there was a whole story running. So the point being, Yusuf and Zulaikha were very, very much in love. And in the poem, Rasul Mir says, Panai chu Yusuf, Panai Zulaikha, which means wo khud hi Yusuf bhi hai aur khud hi Zulaikha bhi hai. So it talks about the self-sufficiency of love and that you do not want anybody else when you are in love. So you are complete in your own self. Panai chu Yusuf, Panai Zulaikha, wo khud hi Yusuf hai, khud hi Zulaikha. He's himself the lover and himself the beloved. Panas chu ashik, pana vesiye. Wo khud ka ashik, khud se hi hai. So this song comes in with a fresh indie vibe, and the person that I'm doing this collaboration with, he's been a mentor, he's been somebody I've looked up to. Irfan Bukhari. This person is the most patient and the calm man that I've ever known in my life, and there's so much to learn from him. So I'd never thought that I would actually get to do a collaboration with him, and I composed this song and had him on the track. He told me that he had not thought that we could go in a song together, because maybe I come off as somebody who has a throw in his voice, and he's somebody who has this subtle softness. He's very tender with his compositions and everything. So it was a privilege to actually compose for somebody you have looked up to, and then have them melt over the song and do it with you in the studio. So very grateful for that. And this journey of found had to come with Parwan, because it talks about the fact that you are self-sufficient when it comes to love. You do not need anybody else to reciprocate to it. So this was a very wholesome idea to me, and it really does fall in the found space, because I think self-love is a very important aspect of love itself. Moving on from song Parwan, we move on to Naad. Naad got renamed so many times. I don't even remember how many times it got renamed, because this song is probably the craziest, I would use that word, the best, the craziest collaboration that I've had. People who you look up to, Muneem bhai, Alif, and Khalid bhai, Parvaz. So both of these people were nice enough to agree to come on a collaboration with me for this one. And I celebrated it so much. Like, this was like a dream come true for an artist like me, to be able to do a song along with the people who have inspired to go in this direction. When you're not listening to anything, you're listening to Parvaz. You're not listening to Parvaz, you're listening to Alif. You just keep hopping between the two. And now you're doing a song with them. So it hit me like a truck. And to get over it, there was no chance. So I remember doing this composition while most of us artists, we had gone to Gulmarg just to have some time off the city life. We went to Gulmarg, we stayed there, we glamped, and we were jamming. It was a stream of consciousness kind of a jam, wherein you just sing whatever comes to your mind and a person is playing a riff. It's very spontaneous. So in that spontaneity, in that moment, I figured that these were the exact lyrics which would sound so beautiful if sung by these two people, and I had these two people in my mind while we were actually jamming that day. So this song came together. Zeeshaan was on guitars, and we did the lyrics just as spontaneously as that. I think stream of consciousness type of songs are the purest form of creativity, because you don't spend too much time in thinking about what are you supposed to put on paper, and you don't edit it at all. Whatever comes to you in the very first instance, whatever you catch from the ether, is the idea, and you don't edit it. So I think that to me is the purest form of art, and it really, this song, this sends you into a trance kind of a situation. It starts with electronica and slowly melts into, it goes into rock, and that is the beauty of it. Like, everybody's colors are so visible in the song. I come first, and then Muneem bhai comes in, and then in the end Khalid bhai comes in. Then the outro is again Kashmiri, which is sung by all of us. So the inclusivity and the collaborative effort in the album is again an openness, which can only be achieved once you unlearn a lot of things in your life. Once you're out of the lost phase and you're over the semicolon phase, you've gone through the grind, and now you see the world and you look at the world in a whole another way. So that's how Naad came into existence. Pivoting from this thought, we move into doing Khwab. So Khwab is a very last entry into the album, but then this was about my openness to explore this feeling wherein there is a male and there is a female, and both of them are talking to each other. The male is apprehensive of certain things in his life, but then the female comes and gives him reassurance. This is about junoon in love. That is what the song is about, and how the girl tells the guy that he has also been a dream of hers, just like she has been a dream of his. And here I make the two reciprocate. So I complete the circle. At one hand, when I say that you don't have a need of anybody else when it comes to love, but then here I am open to contradict with what I have already said, and then explore this feeling wherein there are two people who are in love with each other. So that is the beauty of love. How diverse can it be? It varies from one person to another, although it is a very universal idea. Your way of loving a person could be whole different than my way of loving a person. And the same way around, their way of loving you could be altogether different. So that's how Khwab was an idea, it was a concept. Growing up, I have listened to a lot of rock music from the subcontinent, a few bands, a few individuals who really inspired this sound. One of the biggest influences being Mustafa Zahid's Rogs in the Band, and later on Local Train. So these influences go to your subconscious, and you also want to do something which feeds your soul, because listening to their music really fed my soul, and I wanted to create a song which has that feeling, that vibe that these particular bands give you. So moving on into it, we brought this beautiful female vocalist. She's a great artist. Her name is Fo. She goes by the name Fo, and she came on board with this like a never heard before kind of voice, and we were very sure right from listening to her voice from the very beginning, we were sure that we wanted to have her on the track. Imagine the person that I was when the album started. I was not willing to have any other female feature in the album other than Sifar, who features in Ilham and features so beautifully. So I was sure that this was the only person I wanted to take as a feature in the album. And later on, Zartasha came on board for Kashmir. And then we have Fo on Khwab. And it only adds more flavor and adds more color to the song, and it sounds like a conversation to you between a boy and a girl. It completes the sound, and somewhere I think this had to be in this genre, because when I looked at the album, the only genre that we did not touch was rock and rock pop rock you call it. So when I look at the whole of the album, there is so much going on. There are so many genres that we have gone into. So we did not want to miss out on this one, and that was also one of the motivations to do it, because we wanted to close the loop when it came to genres. In the end, closing the album, so there was this thought like, how do you close the album? You've talked about so much of serious stuff. You've talked about so much of these things which are very serious and intense, and you feel them to the core. We wanted to leave people at a good note. We wanted to leave people at a happy note. We wanted them to groove with something, like tap their feet with something and move themselves with something. So there was this song that I'd written a long time ago, and I jammed it out with Huzaif. He was the guy who put in the blues thing in me. So we tried to do it in blues, and we called the song Chuk Chuk Blues. Now everybody wonders, what is Chuk Chuk? There's a funny story behind it. So there happened to be this friend at a studio we used to visit. His name is Arslan, we call him Arsi. Not my best friend Arslan, but again, a friend Arslan. So he asked somebody to get something from the departmental store, and was like, what do you want to have? So he wanted to eat something chatpata, something interesting. So उसने उसे कहा कि कुछ चक चुक ले आ. So he kind of coined that word. He invented this word, chuk chuk. Chuk chuk means something which is interesting, which is chatpata. So that's how he named the song. It became Chuk Chuk Blues, Chatpata Blues, or something interesting blues. And when I look at the song right now, it makes you sway. And when it comes to the lyrical part of it, for me, it talks about Kashmir. I have renamed Kashmir as Yad, a city called Yad, in this particular song, which roots from my time which I've spent with radio. I used to listen to a show called Yadon Ka Idiot Box by Nilesh Misra. And he used to base his stories around a city called Yad Sheher. So that's where this Yad Sheher in my mind was an ideal place to live in, an ideal place to be in. So that's where it came from. And it says, पहाड़ों के जिस पार एक खास शहर है जिसे लोग याद बुलाते हैं. So पहाड़ों के उस पार एक खास शहर है जिसे लोग याद बुलाते हैं, और वो शहर जो है उसका नाम कश्मीर है. And this is a very easy to understand type of a song. Has a few Urdu words in it. And another highlight of the song was that there is Zeeshaan Nabi on the vocals with me. He's featuring as a vocalist, one of the producers of the album. This guy is very open to exploring new sounds and doing all the crazy kind of things that a musician can imagine of doing. This is the kind of song that he sung in a way that he has never done it before. So, everybody has a type of a thing that he does or it tries to explore, but this was very much on the edge for him, and he did it with so much grace and such beauty. One moment he was like, I'm very sleepy, while we were recording in the studio. The next moment when he hopped onto the mic, he was a beast. And that's what you can also figure out when you listen to this song, Chuk Chuk Blues. So the song also talks about how simpler days were better says यहाँ लोग मुस्तकबिल से हाल में आते हैं और हाल से माजी में चले जाते हैं. So you know, there's this thing with us Kashmiris, how much soever the world moves forward and there's modernization and there's all of these new things happening, you would always like the present more than the future. And you will always like your past more than your present. Just like, so we eat food in copper plates, but sometimes my dad comes up and says, I don't want to eat in a copper plate. Can you guys like get me an earthen plate from somewhere? So he wants to eat food in an earthen plate, just like people used to do back in time, because he's very nostalgic about it and he still thinks that those days were better. The simpler days were better. So that's what I believe in too, and that's where this lyric roots from. And there's a lot of other shades of Kashmir that you will see in it. And that was our way to end the album with this song. And I think the found space got completed when we decided to put Chuk Chuk in this list, the last one, the last ball. And I think the whole idea of putting a happy, a chirpy kind of a song in the end was that, you know, you start with all these dark emotions, you go through a lot in the album, but then you need a bit of relief for good. You've listened to so much, so many stories, so many elements, the process, how the deeper meaning goes, the shallow meaning goes, and everything that is in your conscious and your subconscious. Keeping all of this aside and taking you to a simpler plane to tell you something in simpler words and make your body let loose. That was the whole idea of Chuk Chuk Blues, to be in the end. And looking at the journey, I think in the end, it is all found and you're on the way to find, and what is lost is just gone. हमारी ज़िंदगी पे 4 लाइनें लिखी हैं, आपको सुनाना चाहता हूँ. खुद को पाने को खुद को खोता है, खुद को पाने को खुद को खोता है, राज क्या है ये कैसे होता है. खुद को पाने को खुद को खोता है, राज क्या है ये कैसे होता है. सबकी कहानी वो ही लिखता है, सबकी कहानी वो ही लिखता है. साज ऐसे आवाज़ होता है, साज ऐसे आवाज़ होता है.